Hey y'all, so today I want to talk to you about your plant familiar. In an earlier couple of videos, there was a part one and a part two, I talked about your animal spirit familiar. And in that video, I talked about how there are three kingdoms: the animal kingdom, vegetable kingdom, and mineral kingdom. And you can have a familiar from each of these kingdoms. And a lot of people seem to focus on the animal kingdom. They don't really think about plants and minerals in terms of familiars. And so today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the plant familiar, what it is, and how to meet your plant familiar and work with it. And this lesson comes from in 2017. I wrote and taught a year-long course in Conjure, and I called it the Conjure Challenge. And this is my challenge journal. I taught this class in 2017 and 2018. There were 52 lessons in the course. And so I'm going to be doing a little bit of reading here and going off script a little bit as I see fit. So when people think about familiars, they often think about their options to animals. Rarely do they consider a familiar may come from the plant kingdom as well. So you can have an animal familiar and a plant one too, and a mineral one. In fact, in the Native American culture, a basic medicine bag consists of something of their animal familiar, something of their plant familiar, something of their mineral familiar, and then something of their self. So they may have, let's see, if their animal familiar or totem is a wolf, they may have a wolf tooth. If their plant totem is dandelion, they may have dandelion root. If their mineral totem is amethyst, they may have amethyst, and then for their self they may put in a piece of their hair, and boom, that's their medicine bag. Plant familiars can serve all the same functions as an animal familiar, but plants are generally more attuned to healing and herbology and how to use herbs to heal and make things happen for yourself. In Wicca, witchcraft, and some European sorcery, plants are believed to have what is called numen. That's N-U-M-E-N. That is, it's an energy and a consciousness. And when a witch would want to work with a plant, they would go to that plant where it grows, water it, talk to it about its goals, what it wanted to happen, and eventually it would get permission from that plant to harvest it, and it would usually be harvested in a specific way, such as drawing a circle around the plant to contain its numen and lifting it up and then taking it home and cleaning it in water and drying it and then using it, in a candle spell, carrying it in a bundle bag or a mojo bag or what have you. The most famous plant familiar, arguably, in European witchcraft is the mandrake root, and it has all kinds of lore around it. This is the root that can resemble a human body, both male and female, and it's said that when it's pulled from the earth, the scream it makes can drive a man insane. So in the old days, they would tie that root to a dog and and then go away or cover their ears or what have you, and have that dog pull that root up out of the earth. There's another belief that the mannequin, which is another word for the mandrake root, that's M-A-N-A-K-I-N, could actually walk around on two legs for a little bit after it's been pulled from the earth. And it would do whatever the witch asked of it to do. Now, in the hoodoo tradition, root workers believe that herbs, plants, and roots have their own spirit, and when they work with these herbs, they do it in much the same way. They are harvested with respect. Those that harvest their own herbs and roots, a lot of times these days they buy them from suppliers, and even I don't get all my roots and herbs from where I live. I know lavender grows on the highway in the summertime. I have lots of dandelion back there in my backyard, and some other little herbs and things that I can go and pick but I do mostly use herbs that I pick out of the grocery store and things that I order online. And so when a root worker works with a root, they will pray to or speak to the spirit of that herb or root and asking it, to help them. For example, let's say they have a high John root they want to conquer in order to conquer. They want to carry in order to give themselves more confidence and overcoming enemies. They may say, Spirit of High John, I call upon you to conquer those who would conquer me. In Jesus' name, amen. And then they would carry that like a pocket piece. And a pocket piece is basically like a good luck charm or a talisman you carry around with you. A lot of herbs work well for a pocket piece. And I know that I generally told my students as they looked for their plant familiar, one thing they can do is, if they don't really know what their plant familiar is, they can maybe start out with either High John root or Queen Elizabeth root. And I would have men carry a High John root and women carry a Queen Elizabeth root to bring out the qualities in the gender that they want to possess and enhance. Now here's the thing, in today's gender fluid, non-conforming world, and even then, there's no reason why a woman cannot carry High John root or a man carry Queen Elizabeth root. Let's say you're a man who's timid and you need to draw out your more masculine qualities. You might want to carry High John root. Let's say you're a man who's very masculine and aggressive and you want to tone that down a little bit and you want to become a little bit more compassionate, understanding. You might want to carry the Queen Elizabeth root to sort of help you. Queen Elizabeth root is also a very powerful love drawing talisman. So I do want to add that some people carry that simply to draw love to them. A person can be drawn to a certain herb or root by the way it looks, the color, the way it smells. I personally love lavender. I love the way it smells. At one point, I counted dandelion as my plant familiar. And sometimes these plants come into our life to help us address a specific issue or problem. And then once we address it, it sort of moves on. Other plant familiars stay with us throughout a lifetime. And then there is another school of thought which teaches that, and I've come to believe this myself and practice it myself, that in order to use a plant, that plant's spirit has to come to you, usually in a dream. I've had it happen in divination sessions, but that plant has to come to you in a dream and tell you how to use it. And that's basically giving you the permission to use that herb. And then in order to find your plant familiar, you can find your plant familiar through Dreaming True as well. And the way I did this was I just programmed my mind before I went to bed. I laid down in bed and I took some deep breath and relaxed. And as I was drifting off to sleep, I said to myself, I will dream of my plant familiar. I will dream of my plant familiar. I will dream of my plant familiar. And what happened for me, I think I've told this story before, but I found myself backstage watching an amateur production of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. It was a dress rehearsal. And at one point in the dream, I walked up to the character playing Rocky. And if you don't know who Rocky Horror is, very gorgeous blonde, blue-eyed man, muscular, wearing little gold Speedos and little gold boots. And in the dream, that's all he wore, in the movie and in the dream. I walked up to him and I grabbed him by his junk and I said, "This is mine." And he said, "Well, if it's yours, take it then." And then that's where the dream ended. And so I had to sort of decipher this dream the same way you would decipher any other dream. And so what I did was I like to use word association. So I started off with Rocky. That's the person I spoke to, the character. And I said, well, another word for Rocky is rocks or stones, gravel. I say, okay. And then I grabbed him by his junk. And I know that in certain traditions, your genitals are associated with your root chakra. So I put those two things together, and you get gravel root. Excuse me. And that's when I discovered that my plant familiar was gravel root. And so I actually got me a whole gravel root. I should have grabbed it and brought it in here to show it to you. I'll take a picture of it and put it on my Instagram. And I keep that gravel root on my spirit altar with the little raccoon figure and the turtle, and then my mineral totem. And whenever I need to use herbs in some way, for example, as a professional root worker, when someone purchased a mojo bag from me, I don't have set recipes. I may have correspondences or that I can pull from a list of ingredients. For example, these herbs are good for love, these herbs are good for money, these herbs are good for protection. And what I do is I would go into the dream and I would allow my plant familiar, I call him Joe Pye, because another word for gravel root is Joe Pye weed. And so I say, Joe Pye, I say, Joe, I got me a customer. He needs to attract love. And this is a real story. He needs to attract the lover. He needs to love. He needs more love in his life. Help me find an herb that is willing to help my customer find love. And so that night I dreamed I was in a comic book store. And so I was walking around looking at things, no intention to buy anything, just sort of looking around, killing time. And then finally I sort of made my way toward the front door, and then the cashier called me back. And the cashier said, "Excuse me, this is yours." And he handed me a comic book. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't buy this. This is for me." He goes, "No, it's yours. It's free. Take it." I said, "Oh, okay. Well, thank you." And he thanked me, and I woke up. And so, again, I had to sort of decipher this dream. And so I started thinking about comic books. Comic books are all about heroes and villains, good versus evil. There's usually violence. And then I thought, oh, as soon as I said violence, I thought, well, that sounds like violets. And then it dawned on me, what are the pages of a book called? A leaf. So you put that together, you get violet leaf. And as you all know, or may know, that violet leaf is an herb that is used to attract love and romance. You're supposed to usually put it in your shoe and leave it there for, I believe, 7 days. And then there's a way to, you change that every 7 days for 3 weeks. So you do 7 days, change it out, 7 days, change it out, and then that's 21 days. And then by the end of those 21 days, you're supposed to find love. Anyway, that was the main ingredient in my Love Mojo bag for this person. In addition to that, I added, his personal concerns that he sent me, Queen Elizabeth root, and then maybe juniper berries, maybe some cinnamon powder, things of that nature to make a personalized love drawing mojo bag for this person and help him find love. And that person actually did email me back a couple of months later. He did find someone. I'll give you another example, and I think I've told this story before, or maybe I told it on that show I appeared on. I was sick with a really bad cold, and it got to where it just wouldn't go away. And so I went into a dream, and I asked Joe Pye to help me find a herb that would help heal me. And in the dream, I saw myself in my own body. I was in a bathtub, and I looked down, and there were these little cinnamon rolls floating in the water. Well, that was pretty easy to figure out. So the next day I drew a hot bath and I sprinkled cinnamon in the water and I just soaked in it. And probably about that night, the next day, the cold started breaking up and I could really feel myself healing. At another time, I hurt my back. I laid down on my bed for about 8 hours, and I kept having these really bad spasms every few minutes where I would just wrench up. It was the worst thing I've ever lived through, and I never want to go through it again. And the only reason I forced myself up out of that bed is I had to use the bathroom. I'd laid there for 8 hours, and it was I was either work through the pain and make my way to the bathroom and pee, or pee on myself in the bed. So I threw myself off the bed, sort of this way, and it took me down on my hands and knees, and I crawled to the bathroom, and I climbed up and I was able to stand there and pee. And then after that, I sat in a chair, and it took several days. And I was still in pain. I missed, I think, 2 days of worth of work, and I was still kind of couldn't walk. I couldn't sit up straight. And so I asked Joe Pye to help me find an herb to help heal my back. And so I went into the dream, and in that dream, I saw a bald-headed man driving a convertible car, and then the dream switched to where I wasn't looking at him, but I was seeing things through his eyes. So through his eyes, I looked up, I saw a time on a watch, and I heard his voice say, "It's about time." Well, of course, that was time. And so I did a spell where I put my name on a candle, and then I put the words healing on it, and I surrounded that candle with fresh thyme that I'd gotten at the grocery store, and I burned that candle, and probably within 24, 48 hours, I was able to stand up and walk around. I did walk around with a stick for a little bit, but that was the turning point for me where things got better and I started to heal. So those are 3 examples of how I found my plant familiar and how I use dreams and contact with my plant familiar in order to discover my plant familiar. Your experiences may be different. I have heard stories from people who, they go into the dream and they meet a person, and that person says, "Hi, I look like a person, but I'm actually, I don't know, High John root or Queen Elizabeth root, and I've come to help you do whatever." It's more literal. For me, the dream is something that I have to, it's more symbolic and something that I have to kind of decipher. That's how it works for me. When it comes to you finding your familiar, you can try the dream method. If that doesn't work for you, you can start your search in your own environment where you live. Because what grows where I live now doesn't necessarily grow where I lived in South Carolina. What grows here for me may not grow there for you, and vice versa. So you might want to just sort of go out in nature where lots of plants and things grow, and smell them, talk to them, feel them. Right, if get you one of those little books or apps where you take a picture and it helps you identify what the plant is and see what you're drawn to. See if you're pulled toward any plants. If you don't get any results, you can try, to meditate on it and try the dream method. It may take you a couple of times before you have a dream, especially if you're not used to working with dream work. I also want to mention, I do know one worker who keeps a little leather pouch, and every time, well, not so little, but every time she dreams of a new herb that comes to her and works with, she puts a tiny little bit of that herb in that leather bag. So over time, it's just going to be full of different dried herbs all mixed together, and that's sort of what she does. She'll take that medicine bag and she'll wear it while she's trying to find an herb to help her with a specific condition or problem, or she'll tuck it under her pillow while she sleeps. And the other thing I want you to do is, if you're going to work with this method, to help you find herbs to help you address different problems, I want you to understand 2 things. Number 1 is, just because thyme helped me heal my back that one time, it may not help me next time. Just because thyme helped me heal my back that one time, it may not work for you. If God forbid I hurt my back again, the next time it may be a completely different herb that comes to help me. So the second thing I'm suggesting for you is get you a book, get you a notebook, and whenever you have these experiences, write these experiences down. Write down the herb that comes to you, write down what you used it for, and write the outcome so you can go back and try to duplicate it later. Again, it may not always work more than once, but it can. What I was taught was that any plant spirit can help you with anything. It's just a matter of finding one that is willing to help you with whatever it is that you're doing. Just like you have a choice to go to any doctor. Any doctor you go to can help you with, I don't know, a headache, something simple. It's just a matter of which one will actually help you. Anyway, that is my lesson on your plant spirit familiar. If you have a plant familiar, I'd like to hear from you. How did you find your plant familiar? What is your plant familiar? And how do you work with your plant familiar? Anyway, until next time, make good decisions, be good people, and do good things.